We had some more fun not that long ago when we worked on the Small Business Revolution in Fredonia. What an extraordinary success that was, and a point of pride for all of us in Western New York. So we'll pick up on that fun initiative as soon as we can. And I understand the stress that all of you are under. I come from a small business family. I joined the Chamber of Commerce with my mother, and we started a small flower shop in Hamburg a long time ago. And I think you've heard me say that when I come to your annual events. My true understanding of chamber membership as a strong advocate for its members, as well as just an opportunity for people to share information. And that's what I wanted to do today, was use this as a platform to a large number of individuals during these really uncertain and stressful times. And I want to make sure that everyone understands some of the announcements that just came out today from the governor, and one of them has to do with some of the activities that are opening statewide May 15th. It's a limited number, but they are low-risk enterprises such as landscaping, gardening. There have been some questions about initially landscaping was even just for health purposes or maintenance purposes, but not cosmetic. And so got questions about whether or not you could mulch. Well, that's all been clarified now. Landscaping and gardening will be open statewide beginning on the 15th. As well as some other outdoor low-impact issues, impact sports like tennis, where there's not a lot of people gathering, and drive-in movies, and some other outdoor ventures like that. So those are all going to be opening statewide. Also, I do want to make sure everyone understands that we have representation from Chautauqua County on something that we just announced yesterday, and the governor, I had my first call yesterday, but the governor announced today, is these regional control rooms. And your member is your county executive, Wendell. I've been in regular contact with him, and what a great, strong ally he's been for all of us, as well as the mayor of Jamestown, Eddie Sundquist. So you have their voices as part of this group of individuals that has the highest elected officials from all 5 of the counties, who are assigned to closely monitor all the metrics that you mentioned at the forefront. There are 7 metrics that the governor has put forward as wanting to meet, and those aren't dreamed up by the state of New York. These are CDC guidelines and World Health Organization to ensure that public health is foremost and that we don't have any backsliding, because the last thing any of us want to do is get to a point where we have to do this all over again. I think that'd be too much to impose on New Yorkers, but we also are going to make sure we get this right. So this reopening, it will be in a phased-in way. Those metrics need to be met for the region. And I understand the argument that each county is making, saying that they're distinct and unique, but there is a lot of cross-border connection, particularly in northern Chautauqua County with Erie County. People work in Erie County, some work in Buffalo, even have long commute, but they enjoy the more rural lifestyle, but have their jobs in other areas. So there is a lot of synergy between the neighboring counties, and I'm well aware of that. As someone who frequently goes to Chautauqua County for entertainment and different activities, and even down at Millie's just a few days ago. So that's common. And so it's hard to say to this one county what's happening here is in isolation, because it's truly not. And you mentioned the testing and the tracing, and I think I want everyone to understand why that's important. We are finally in a place where we're doing more testing than, in fact, any state in the nation. We're doing more testing. And what that allows us to do, and you as employers to know, that when you open up, if someone comes into your facility, one of your workers, and you test them for their temperature as a good practice, they end up going to a testing facility, test positive. We need to know who they came in contact with. And for a while, Chautauqua and Cattaraugus and Allegheny didn't have the number of testing sites that were necessary to meet the metrics or the number of contact tracers. And we've been really focused on working with the elected officials to get those numbers higher so the whole region could meet the metrics. We are missing 2 of them related to hospitalizations. We need to see a decline in hospitalizations as well as a decline in the death rate. And those are issues that we're working on, doing everything we can, but reminding people that they have a lot of power over this, because this and wearing the mask and all the precautions we're taking, hand washing, they sound like a broken record. But that's why we don't have an explosion of cases in upstate New York, as we had foreseen this wave, this tsunami that would hit upstate after we saw what happened in New York City. So I want you to understand the foundation behind having really clear data-driven guidelines. And I'm also going to announce today that you can have access to this information if you want to keep score of how Western New York is doing. That's now available on a website that'll be updated regularly to check the boxes of the areas where we've met them. And we made some progress a week ago. We were about 3 out of 7. We got to 4 out of 7. Now we're 5 out of 7. So that should give you some sense of optimism that we are trending in a good direction. But the website or the the website is on Forward New York, and I'll get that information so you can track what's going on as well. So I also wanted to say this control group, which should be have representatives from Chautauqua and the other counties, they will actually have their real hands on the pulse. They will understand data information as it's coming in regularly. When we do start opening, we have to have a control mechanism in place that if necessary, if all of a sudden one of your businesses becomes a hotbed and there's a spike in cases and it starts spreading around the community, that we'd be able to control that, monitor it, and simply pause what's going on at that time until it can get back under control. And the next meeting of that control room happens to be at 4 o'clock today. We want to keep that active and keep it moving forward. So I'll probably have to stop about 3:55, and I'm happy to get to your questions. I thought a lot of them were very thoughtful, and I think the first one that you mentioned, Todd, is something that's on everyone's minds, is why can't the counties be separated? And I think I addressed a lot of that, and making sure that all of you, are taking the steps necessary to prepare your businesses for the eventuality that you'll be reopening. The chamber does a great job making sure that you understand all the safety precautions that you should want to take, because again, the last thing your reputation is going to need is a hit if there ends up being an increase in cases from your workforce when they come back because you didn't take precautions or you didn't identify someone early in the process. And what's going to really affect our ability to come back and come back strong is the confidence of the workforce to go into a place where they've been isolating in their homes for a long time, feeling more secure there. When they start venturing out into the workplace, if you're one of the early businesses, construction, manufacturing, curbside retail, which will be in phase 1, that's a higher risk of exposure to people to each other. We're willing to take that risk in the regions that have met these metrics, but we also want to make sure that as businesses that you've done everything humanly possible to make sure that the spread does not spread in your workforce. I know things you can't control, but you can control the workspace and the environment. And I know that all of you are taking steps in that direction now to get protective equipment, to even, I think it'd be advisable to get the ability to take people's temperatures, your employees, build the separation on the assembly line or your workspace, if you can build plexiglass dividers, and make sure that you have a lot of masks available to your staff as well. So those are easy to figure out. You can do that now. Get all the disinfectants you can get your hands on. Come up with protocols that'll make your workplace safe. And so when we do open, you don't have any leg time where you say, well, I now have to start gathering masks. I would start working on that right now. So I'm happy to take a few questions, but what we don't get to because of this importance of having this control meeting that we have very shortly, I'm going to allow Todd to continue, send the questions to us, and we'll get them to the right agencies and try to get you as many answers as we can. But I do appreciate this opportunity today.
Would you like me to pose the questions to you, Kathy, that came in?
Sure. Did you want? I can answer questions. I thought if you wanted to ask them, it's up to you, Todd. Whatever you like.
Hold on a moment. We had some pre-written ones that came through. Give me 1 second here.
I want to address a couple that I have in front of me from you, Todd, already, so
Sure.
we don't have time. There's a question about retail store locations. We got a floor covering and furniture store, and wondering what will happen when, how will it be affected when it's time to have businesses open. Phase 1, as I said, will allow curbside pickup. If there is a way that you can take photos of some of your merchandise, or you have a website already, and reach out to your customers and do your advertising to say that when this reopening starts, you can be one of the early businesses that allows people to order, purchase online, and to also then have it picked up at the curb. And again, I would encourage you, when you send someone out to the curb with your merchandise, make sure they're wearing a mask, put gloves on, give your customers the assurance that they're not going to pick up the virus from contents from your store. And that's what's going to be frightening to people. They know that this virus can stay on surfaces for anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, depending on the type of service, and you want to make sure that they feel comfortable to make those purchases. So, and if you also think that you're entitled to a waiver, that if you think it's a different type of business or performs a different function, then you understand. Any business, and this is for everyone, you can apply for a waiver and just go to the ESD website and look at what the criteria are in order to get a waiver. And if you follow those, you might be granted this if you can make an argument as to why your services are essential. So I was also asked if there's a link you can go to see the current Western New York status. Again, it just started today. It's forward.newyork.gov. And there's literally a New York Forward book launched just in the last couple of hours that lays out guidelines, but also where we've been and where we're going. And I think you'll find that very useful to you as well. Got a question about hotels. Right, I'll answer that for you. Asking about hotels, rentals, and accommodations being in phase 3. Actually, we viewed hotels and rentals as essential businesses. The function of a hotel, literally to give someone a place to sleep, is considered essential. The only thing that was stopped as being non-essential are areas where people would congregate or come into contact with more people, like a spa or a restaurant or a swimming pool or even room service. So those essential services are the ones that would kick in a later phase, possibly phase 3. But certainly hotels and rentals are viewed as essential at this point. So I just want to let you clarify that for you. Question about whether churches should be developing reopening plans. Yes, yes, yes. I've heard from a lot of the clergy. In fact, I have a clergy call, I think in 2 more days, to talk about what they can be doing. And again, it's been very hard on them. And certainly a lot of society and life's milestones come through our religious organizations, you know, the baptisms, the weddings, the funerals, and a cessation of those, because that's a place where people gather, and that's where this virus could so easily spread, as we saw in other cases. So they should be talking about how they can, you know, if they have pews in their church, you know, how they can separate people, literally put tape and space out 6 feet between them. Make sure that there's plenty of hand sanitizer when they walk in the door, that people can clean their hands and wash their hands with soap in the restrooms. If you can, you know, have masks available to members, you know, encourage everybody to show up with a mask on, but if they don't have some, you have some extra. And then talk about how you're going to sanitize the surfaces of the pews and common areas in between services. So they have not been designated a particular phase yet. They're certainly not phase 1, we knew that, but they should be preparing for that eventuality. And one of the last questions I'll be able to get to is mega store. Why are stores like Walmart allowed to be open when small businesses are not? I understand that argument, and I know how frustrating it is, but Walmart and the larger stores like Target, they carry food, and we've allowed all food stores to be open, even the tiniest deli up to a larger chain grocery store like a Tops or a Wegmans. And because those large box stores also provide food to a lot of families, that was deemed essential in the first phase, unlike certain, you know, small, again, a small bake shop or a small, you know, delicatessen. Right. So, I think that's most of the questions I had. Todd, did you find anything else that I missed?
Well, there are quite a few here. I don't know if we'll be able to get through all of them, but could you speak to the fines associated with businesses that are not following the order, and does that have any implications on their disaster loan funding or any other resources maybe they have received during this difficult period?
Is that referring to businesses that are already functioning, like the essential businesses that are allowed to work now that are, may not following the protocols, or a business that shouldn't be open at all and they open? I'm not sure which.
Yeah, I think a good question. I think this is associated with any business maybe that was deemed non-essential but is operating, or they deem themselves essential and maybe somebody comes back later and says they're not.
Well, if anyone has any question, I encourage them to contact Empire State Development through that website and say, yeah, I thought I was essential. Can you confirm me that I am? We looked up really very clearly, we thought, and hopefully there's no room for any confusion in the number of, or the different entities that are considered essential. It's very long, and that's an executive order, and there's guidance online that explains all that. I'm sure it's available through the chamber as well. So that's clear. Entities that are in direct violation, there's local authorities will be involved. If, for example, if people are gathering whether or not, in larger numbers than they're supposed to, that's something that we're looking to the local authorities. I don't know the amount of fines right now, but I really would encourage people to adhere to the standard. You are jeopardizing the goodwill that you've built in the community with your business, and if people can just hang on longer and help us get through this together, and not have one entity that's going to do something and the impact is going to be community-wide, that others will be contracting the virus because they didn't take proper precautions. We all have to figure this out together, and the only reason we're not in a far worse situation right now when they expected to have over 140,000 people across the state in hospitals at the same time, because New Yorkers listen. They did exactly what they were asked to do, and I'm really proud of that fact, to know how many adhere to the social distancing, particularly over a weekend like Easter or Mother's Day when you want to be with people. And all the sacrifice and the sacrifice for our small businesses, we don't want that to be wasted and to say, well, some selfish people decide they're going to do their own thing, and now we have an epidemic and an outbreak and it's really hurting our community. We don't want to go there. So let's just all look out for each other and stay within the protocols and the guidelines that have been issued. And they are going to continue opening up. We're really trending in that direction. That's what I'm really focused on doing.
Lieutenant Governor, we have, there's a couple of manufacturers in our region that, one that was deemed non-essential, the other one who never really got a response to their question. And the good news is both of them have had an April sales season that exceeded even what they had planned prior to the pandemic. However, they're running out of inventory, and if they don't get manufacturing up soon, they're going to lose customers, and they're going to be forced into a situation where their competition takes their customers. Is there any advice you could provide to them?
I would take another shot at asking for the waiver and see whether or not there's any essential businesses that are anywhere that they supply their product. I don't know what product you're referring to, Todd, but if it's one where they can establish by looking at the list of essential businesses that it's something that they'd be supplying to them, that they find important, that's another argument that can be made. And if someone is still waiting for a response on a waiver, I can tell you there was a crush of volume early on, but now maybe a better time to take another pass at trying to build your case, establish that, and see what ESD has to say.
With the ramp up and reopening, are there going to be some resources through the state to help build child care infrastructure?
I cannot give an answer about resources from the state until we know what Congress is going to do in the next week or so. We've asked for significant help for us to help with localities, to help us fund the extraordinary costs we've had to bear because of this crisis. Really none of it is budgeted. And unfortunately, our schools and our local governments and our hospitals will be terribly affected, adversely affected, if we don't get to the support that we're asking from a federal stimulus bill to help the hardest hit states. And if we get that money, we'll be in a much better position to talk about freeing up money for programs like childcare. We know how important it is. I've been talking about this way before this pandemic as it being a real barrier for a lot of people to enter the workplace. And particularly as we enter in the summer and we don't know if there'll be summer camps and what other arrangements parents would have had. And I commend the parents having to deal with their kids being at home and they're trying to still manage their businesses. This has been really, really hard. So I can't say on this call that there'll be money from the state for childcare programs, but it's something that as a region we need to get our arms around and figure out how to make this happen. And that's something that I'm going to be focused on as we try to remove some of the barriers to a successful reopening. So with that, I'm going to jump off and get on this other control call, Todd. And I thank everybody for their thoughtful questions and the frustration that you're all going through. I feel it, I know it, and I'm listening very intently to all your concerns. And Todd, you've been a great ambassador to make sure we're aware of them. So thank you, everybody. I miss seeing you all in person. I love coming out to your events, but we will stay in touch.
Thanks for your time today, Lieutenant Governor. Take care and stay well.
Thank you.